Hello, everyone. Behruz Hamzai from World Influencers Network is here. We have another session. We have another wonderful session of World Coronavirus Vulture Conference. If you want to learn more about who we are and what we do, please go back, and we're going to put a link down below so you can check out. And meanwhile, today, we are having an amazing guest, and we have an amazing topic. I think everybody's going to benefit from it big time. So I'd like to introduce you James Ehrlich. He is the founder of ReGen Village, the Stanford University spin-off of the company, creating it's called Tesla of Villages. Really interesting. And he is a senior technologist at the Stanford University. He is a social entrepreneur with he's a serial entrepreneur with 25 years of experience. Also, he is in the senior fellow at the NASA Ames program, as well as he was appointed as a White House U.S. State Department Joint Task Force on Nexus of Food, Water, Energy, and Waste under Obama administration. Welcome, James.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here. I appreciate it. I hope everybody is staying safe and staying healthy, and most important, optimistic.
Yes, so basically this is the reason why we're trying to bring you and many others on the floor, so people who are sitting at home not knowing what to do and probably sick and tired of watching cat memes on YouTube could learn something about it. So we're going to have a really good discussion, and I'm going to say, before hitting the topic, I have a standard question to ask. Where are you right now, and how your daily routine have changed because of the COVID, and what have changed in the city you are? If you tell a little bit.
Sure. So I'm at Stanford University in Palo Alto, California, in the heart of Silicon Valley. The university is now essentially closed. The physical campus is closed. All the classes have moved online, and lectures as well. And it's a completely surrealistic world, of course, because essentially a good portion of the planet now is under house arrest, in self-arrest, at least. We call it, self-isolation. So we're in a community connected to Stanford, and we are part of a larger community here in the Bay Area and in California that had a pretty good early warning system in terms of what was happening in China, and very good leadership in terms of both the state level and the local level of shutting everything down and getting everybody to stay home. And those were very big decisions, but those big decisions that happened earlier saved lives. So currently California has almost the flattest curve anywhere in terms of the spread and in terms of deaths. So we still have cases, of course, but and there's mortality, but it's not the kind of, the comparison really with, for instance, New York or Italy or other places. This is we're doing everything we can. So it's the challenge, of course, is for everybody is now this new reality of living in your house and in your place, where you have to either brave once in a while to go out to shop for food and essentials, or to have things delivered. And so we're also experiencing, for the first time, I think many people, shortages, to go to the market and realize that shelves are bare. And this is something that I hate to say that I predicted 6 years ago, not necessarily from pandemic, but mostly from climate change anomalies, and where we were getting this data in terms of sort of system collapse. And that's why at Stanford, and my previous experience in research for 15 years or so was in self-sustaining small neighborhood developments and communities. So typically eco-villages and what are called agri-hoods. So very strong neighborhoods that are essentially built on or around organic farms. So people at their doorstep have healthy, delicious nutrition, and so that really reduces risk, right? So
Yeah.
that's been the primary cause celeb. So I guess before my talk, what I'd like to do, if that's okay, is to share some very exciting and optimistic news. So
Please.
before my talk, I just would like to share this research. This is published research. It is based on over 100-year active protocol that has been widely used in the medical community. It's extremely cost effective. It's a treatment for deactivating viruses and essentially destroying bacterial infections. And it's ozone treatment. So IV ozone treatment is a method that is used for essentially purifying the blood and
Mm-hmm.
and oxygenating the blood in such a way that COVID-19 doesn't have a chance. What it does is it inhibits and cuts the legs off of the S protein, which is the S protein is what is invading the human cells.
Yeah, those coronas we're talking about, right? Those ones who are
Yes.
connecting like a USB to our system and plumps that RNA to body so they can reproduce.
Exactly, and so Dr. Rowan's work, and he's here in Northern California. It's it's groundbreaking research. The synopsis of vignette really was that he had gone to Sierra Leone
Mm-hmm.
during the height of the Ebola outbreak,
Okay.
and he was allowed to treat. He was only allowed to treat 5 patients, but he had 5 people who were sick with Ebola, and the ozone treatment completely cured these
Wow.
Ebola patients with 0 implications and complications after the treatment. So I would say this it's pretty darn effective in treating even the nastiest kind of viral infections and viral loads.
Well,
So
this looks phenomenal. I really hope that we're gonna get that research and we're gonna link down below, and we will really want to talk to Robert hopefully. I think that would be really amazing. I think it's a groundbreaking, as you said. It's because right now we don't know how to treat. Yeah, we are using some malaria or HIV treatment, or we are trying to come up with new ones until the vaccines are there, and we don't see it in the next 12 to 18 months. So that therapy seems to be ineffective, and it can be implemented, I think, quite fast, isn't it?
yes, and in advance of ozone treatment, it's very important for people to understand that having a diet with high fresh vitamin C,
Uh-huh.
so citrus, all different kinds of citrus, and if you're feeling any kind of symptoms at all, to move to the next level with ascorbic acid. So it's a high concentration of vitamin C,
See.
making sure to have good vitamin D supplements if you can't get out into a sunny, beautiful day and get absorbed the natural vitamin D, to take the vitamin D and vitamin E supplements. And that course, that regimen, actually is preventing people from having to go to hospital. So they may have
Wow.
symptoms, they may be feeling sick, but it doesn't, just even starting in that protocol can help people immeasurably. So between the vitamin C and then eventually with the ozone treatments, this is a cure for COVID-19, and that's the research that's published here and presented by Dr. Rowan. And so, well in advance of any kind of vaccines, we can look at actually treating the most vulnerable with vitamin C and with ozone treatments.
Ozone. Wow, it is sensational, James. It's sensational. Thank you very much.
Sure.
As a part of my work, as a part of preparing for this conference, like for past 2 months, I think everybody's doing it. regardless of where they are and who they are, because they're stuck at home. We are learning about this every day. I never saw this, and I think it's going to be a surprise for everybody. And I think this is the beauty of communication, of networking, when we talk and when we bring it out to a picture so we can actually implement it. I'm more than sure a lot of people are going to benefit, and we're going to talk more about that. But I think it's just the off topic. This is not our main topic, and definitely we're going to get in touch with Dr. Robin and talk about his ozone therapy. And for now, I wanted to jump into your wonderful, amazing concept, which I truly love.
It's a theme about optimism. It's a theme about
a glimpse of hope. Glimpse of hope.
Yes. It's the post-COVID world that we want to enter into and live our species on a planet and within planetary boundaries. So ReGen Villages is, as you mentioned before, is a Stanford University spin-off company that I founded. It's a Dutch holding company. But we also have subsidiaries in Sweden, in the UK, in the US, and ReGen Villages at its heart is the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning software to design and define and then manage autonomously these self-sustaining, healthy neighborhoods. So the neighborhoods of the future that can have food, water, energy, waste to resource management, connectivity to autonomous transit, healthcare, curriculum, and other kinds of features, all inclusive in a way that is socially affordable for the rest of us. So just wanted to give you a little background on the vision. I was inspired as a technologist, a software developer, originally designing video games way back when in my early 20s, to when I moved from New York to Northern California, and I was surrounded by these amazing organic, biodynamic, small family farms. Not just subsistence, they were overproducing for the communities themselves. And I learned about the research of Rudolf Steiner and Buckminster Fuller of full ecosystem thinking in terms of design, and also the work coming out of Australia in the 1970s on permaculture, which is these symbiotic forests that are producing a lot of different kinds of fruit trees, nuts, berries, plants, herbs, medicinals, but they're all together in what seems like a very chaotic way, but it's actually a completely edible forest that is a year-round generating of nutrition. And I was so inspired by this work that I filmed these stories about these farmers and where the food was going. And as an offshoot to my software company that I was running, I was also producing a national television cooking show based on this incredible healthy nutrition at people's doorsteps. So when I came to Stanford in the year 2012, I had already kind of amassed this research of intentional communities, eco-villages that had been pretty successful in creating the circumstances for self-reliance, that they were strong, that they were resilient. And I was so inspired by this that I wanted to figure out how we could create some software that could actually communicate between these natural resource flows and healthy living and technology. So I was inspired by the work of Dr. Suzanne Simard from the University of British Columbia, who in her journeys through the Pacific Northwest had discovered an incredible thing, this Ethernet of fibers underneath the forest floor, connecting all the different trees and plants and cultivars across hundreds of really kilometers. And that was a mycelium network. It's a fungal network that inoculates itself into the plants and the trees. And what's amazing about it is that it's a symbiotic, collaborative economy, that's a have-need network that is conveyed through an electrochemical conversation between the plants. So her research proved that old growth Douglas fir trees, the big mother trees in the forest, were conveying nutrients to different species, maple seedlings, hundreds of meters away. You would think Darwinian logic that those maple seedlings would die off. But no, there's actually a long-term bank account or ledger that someday in the future, that maple tree as it grows will convey a particular kind of sugar or nutrient to the rest of the forest that the rest of the forest is interested in investing in. So it's quite a good model, actually, we think, for the future of economies on Earth as well. So in looking at design thinking of mycelial networks, mycorrhizal networks, we ourselves, as a species, 30% of our DNA is mycorrhizal. And it's the oldest living organism on Earth. A mushroom is the oldest living organism on Earth. And you start to look at these patterns in nature, whether it's inside us or whether it's city design, the internet, and most recently, at a cosmological scale, it's been proven that galaxies are connected across cosmological scales with electromagnetic dark matter. Very much similar patterns to what we're talking about in a mycelial network. Now, imagine designing and developing the neighborhoods and the communities of the future around a digital mycelial network that for the first time can understand the nutritional flows, food, water, energy, circular waste systems, energy positive, smart houses, in addition to a variety of kinds of systems and services directly in the benefit of human thriving. It's a very different kind of model than traditional real estate development, put it that way. It's really about how can we create the circumstances for the best, healthiest outcomes for living. And at the heart of it, really, which is the basis of my research, is this really incredible, beautiful, biodiverse farming techniques. It's a very different economic model than rows and rows of the same thing for distribution to warehouses to supermarkets. No, we're talking about non-till soil quilt of a variety of different kinds of food items that you have a full menu at your doorstep that we would argue is more bioavailable nutrition that you're eating it. And we marry that soil-based farming with a little bit of controlled environment farming for year-round places, cold weather climates, dry, hot, arid climates, where we mix the combination of aquaponics and aeroponics. So this is the use of freshwater shrimp, crawfish, 6 or 7 different species of freshwater fish. Their waste is ammonia.
Yeah.
And that ammonia, through a light biological interaction, is converted to nitrites and then nitrates that feeds the plant beds in those rows and the stacks. Then the water trickles back down to the fish tanks, and we save almost 80% water farming like this, with almost 1/3 increased yield. So between the soil-based farming, the controlled greenhouse farming, and what people can grow right next to their homes, you start to get a picture here of a huge overproducing food basket. With all of those things are life-affirming, but they're also asset classes. You're able to actually generate revenue, barter, public goodwill around this sort of nutrition generator, if you will. So one of the key issues that we faced in controlled environment farming especially is, how do you feed the chickens, how do you feed the fish without having to buy fish food and chicken food, which is typically not good for them or good for us. So we figured out a way to use animal waste and food waste digested by aquatic red worms and black soldier fly larvae. These creatures together eat their own weight every day in food and animal waste, and are the perfect food for the chickens and the fish. So it's a completely circular system. And the best part of this infrastructure is that their waste, the fly and the worm waste, is actually nutrient-rich, microbe-filled topsoil that can then be spread back out across even gray field or brownfield locations as a restorative feature that brings this abundant, fruiting, blossoming life back to the land. And those webs of life, those ecosystems of life, was particularly our focus for our metabolic integration. So here you see what used to be previous neighborhood infrastructure, energy, water, waste. We add food to that. Previously, those systems didn't know about each other at all. They were pretty dumb. Now, through our software, those systems can not only know about each other, but they can learn and improve. And that's the basis of our village operating system software, which is the first of its kind. As I mentioned, this nutritional flows connected to smart house infrastructure, as well as external services, mobility, curriculum, healthcare, etc. We use the software at first to design, like a digital twin, like a sim city, if you will, of building these neighborhoods in a virtual space. So you just get land information, what's called GIS data. Our software ingests that, and then we'll be able to map out the perfect regenerative neighborhood on that land grant. That same software then is the village operating system in a box. It's them taking that digital twin and actually can run and operate that physical community once it's built. And then the third level of the software will be to enable governments to create off-grid neighborhoods, decentralized, from district scale utilities, where they don't lose tax base, because they're the ones creating the circumstances for a new kind of law, a new kind of rule book that says, if you do these things this way, then you can build and have people move in within 6 months or a year. So fast track permitting and changing the rules for previously zoned agricultural, ranch, and greenbelt areas. These are big pain points right now on Earth. So our software addresses that, builds these communities, and then manages those communities. Now imagine this. Imagine the Tesla model, as you mentioned before, for neighborhoods, where communities can know about each other, learn and improve each other based on where they are in climate zones. So it's border-free software and tech. And that is really quite a brilliant solution, we think, for the future of our species on planet Earth, living well within our boundaries in terms of nature. And at the heart of it, and the cause of this, is happy, healthy life going forward, where we can come together, multi-generational, multicultural, multi-socioeconomic level, in the same communities, in the same neighborhoods, where we're all connected with our natural resources. And this is proven by itself to create the circumstances where people live to 100, 110 years old, never taking medicine, never seeing doctor, because they're happy and they're living within community. So it's not senior living or pushing the elder away or putting people with small kids in one cluster. It's neighborhoods that are all together and people living together. And that we can reimagine this open space farmland to be estuaries for migrating birds and pollinators. We can celebrate seasonality again. It's something we're so disassociated from as a species. We've been sold that big cities is the way forward, and that living separate from nature is the best way forward. And now I think most of the population on Earth realizes that's not true, that the safest, healthiest, best places to live are in these smaller, self-sustaining, self-reliant communities. And that's really the snapshot of our master plan thinking, is full stack, multi-input food, water, energy, waste systems with great connectivity to modern, beautiful living, but that's also affordable. And that's also opportunities for social housing. So it's not just for wealthy people, in other words. And that is a mix of roughly 2/3 to 1/3 of land for productive purposes and 1/3 for housing. The future of mobility, we know, is going to be autonomous. So we don't put in garages or driveways. It's all just peripheral parking, EV charging, discharging, and also mostly biking and walkable small EV transit around the neighborhoods themselves. So getting into this whole idea of a new way of living, where even if you're in a social affordable flat, a tiny apartment, you have co-living space on each floor, you have rooftop gardens, atrium access to the full park-like edible setting of a ReGen village, the tiny house movement, which is very strong and growing, the row houses of 3s and 4s, townhomes, condominiums, the semi-detached for seniors and those with disabilities, so full services on the ground floor, and even the villas, which you can have for multiple families or people living together sharing a mortgage, so a micro mortgage for people to share homes like this. We're really interested in prefab, circular building materials, this idea of mass timber and cross-laminated timber, especially for northern climates. It's a wonderful building material. And when you build in this way, in a controlled environment, in a warehouse, you save almost 1/3 construction waste and almost 1/5 less construction time and money on site as it's being built. Everything is built in the warehouse: plumbing, electrical, HVAC, lighting, glazing, sensors, and then it snaps into place like Lego. We're also really interested, especially for the emerging economies in the global south, on 3D printed housing and using hempcrete as a mechanism for these homes to be built in a very beautiful way, very quickly. They can be move-in ready within a week and be for less than maybe a few thousand US per house. Hemp is an amazing building material. It is a crop that has almost 8 yields per year and is flame resistant and pest resistant, mold resistant, and also is a carbon sink and is biodegradable. And again, you can build these very beautiful kinds of homes in modular ways with this. We very quickly, we looked at this idea of urban permaculture, because we're not anti-city. We just want to look outside cities first and then come back with solutions. So these are some ideas we've had for rooftop farming and making a structure like this more resilient. This is an example in Taipei from Vincent Calbeau of an example of regenerative residential tower, and also some designs from Vincent on sea level rise and man-made archipelago. Again, regenerative design thinking for residential living. These are some what I call band-aids for current city living, including the ability to generate water in a solid state way that just takes the moisture from the air.
Yeah, thin air, yeah.
Yeah, 5 to 18 liters of fresh water per day. This is an example in India, southern India. The photos on the left are from the mid-1970s. The photos on the left are today. A few group of people, not a lot of people, came together in the mid-1970s and started to plant trees and started to create an intentional eco-village. And in that time, since then, 2,200 hectare of land has been restored. It's its own microclimate now. It brings its own rain. 3,000 families now live in this place called Oroville, and they have almost 500,000 visitors every year. So they feed them, they hydrate them, they create their own power, they digest their own waste. The point is, if we move ourselves closer to Mother Earth, she will move closer to us. And that's how we intend to save ourselves on planet Earth. Very quickly, we are a Dutch holding company. We are raising funds right now in a Series A round to build the neighborhoods of the future. And we have a pipeline of projects across North Europe, the Nordics, the US, and Canada. We have a pipeline of projects all around the world. I had been to Moscow last year for the Moscow Urban Forum, and it was fantastic. It was a great event, and was really pretty inspired by the thinking there, especially surprised that many people were thinking of these kinds of external to city new developments that could be self-sustaining. So there's no doubt that there's a huge market. We are the Rolling Stones of modern eco-villages, over 90 million web impressions, press coverage almost every week about us. We're close to now 22,000 families that have registered to buy homes or rent homes and live in ReGen Villages. And we've got fantastic technical partners all around the world with systems that work, that our software can communicate with, and that they can communicate with us, and to improve those functions. Also, because I maintain my connection and affiliation to Stanford University, I'm part of the School of Medicine Health and Human Performance Department in a nascent project, hopefully someday institute, called Stanford Flourishing. And it's all about how we can improve healthy outcomes for long-term happy longevity. So our relationship to universities is very strong because of the need to express this research and also to move us forward at a parliamentary level, at an EU level, at a legislative level, to change the rules, to build these communities all around the world rapidly. Pre-COVID, this was just a few months ago, over 12 trillion US dollars had moved out of fossil fuel investments. Whole countries like Norway, Ireland, University of California have divested from fossil fuels. So there's literally a mountain of capital. Now with COVID, we have governments, systemic institutional investments, sovereign wealth, pension funds especially, are committing to a green transition. That as we come out of COVID, we must now plan for resiliency. And that's really the key for us, is building these communities all around the world using sovereign wealth and pension fund as patient debt finance, but also where we can create these communities that meet or exceed the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So we've published 2 UN platform briefs, myself and 2 other professors at Stanford University, Larry Leifer and Chris Ford, on the topic of ReGen Villages. And we're also part of an EU Smart Rural Village Commission, which is helping to design and define the guidelines for building these healthy rural areas. So ReGen Villages is the future of living in self-sustaining, healthy places. So we really welcome you to join us. We welcome you to think differently about how you invest. We're open to that investment, and we're ready to build the future together. Thank you so much.
I'm speechless, James. I think we have to just take a moment to appreciate uh, I'm sorry, it just made me numb. There is so much rush to like so much the informational. Uh, wow.
There's a lot going on, but the truth of the matter is, it's not Star Trek. It's not a holodeck. Okay, every day buildings are being built. Every day neighborhoods are being built, and they're being
And why
built.
not to build them in this way? And we're
That's it.
gonna spend anytime we're gonna spend the land, we're gonna spend like people are gonna go, they're gonna destroy the whole like a small forest, and they're gonna build up like 9-story faceless concrete jungle and create a small cells like we are like sort of like animals, so just put us in there and to use a minimum space to build up the maximum capacity. Why not to use it in this way? I mean, this incredible concept, and I could not express my feelings just because I haven't thought it at that capacity. And what I absolutely love, I already like you sold the idea to me. I will buy I would love to buy a house like this. I would love to live in a community of like this, and I'm sure 90% of people will agree. But for most of the people, this picture looks very expensive. You know, it just seems that it is very expensive, and only rich people can afford this. And that's why we're stuck in those huge cities in our small like 50 feet 50 square feet our apartment. Just this is what we can afford. But I assume, of course you're going to tell us more, that this is not high end. This is not for to save for 40 years. It's just something that you can pitch in. It's just something you can actually buy for the money you have, or you would spend on a decent apartment in the city, isn't it?
Well, look, let me put it this way. Pre-COVID, because we're living in a world of pre-COVID and post-COVID. Pre-COVID economy, our goal really was to strive for at least 40-45% social affordable housing in each neighborhood. So that's nearly half of the community that has social affordable access. And the social part of the housing would be that people could actually live in the community, work in the community, be part of the community administration, if you will, in supporting the farming operations, gardening, other kinds of aspects to the community. And that over a period of 20, 30 years, that contribution each month would essentially be like a mortgage payment. And they would then get title on their property, on their flat, or their house. So that's a very different model than anything that's happened before. That's pre-COVID. Now we're talking about essentially COVID and post-COVID world, where at least in the U.S., last I checked, we have now 16 million people who have lost their jobs. Within a month. So we have to. There's going to be essentially a transformation that has to happen in terms of, like I was saying before, government systemic investments in building this kind of future. It's not utopia, okay? First of all, it's not socialism, in that way. It's not. It is. It's about logical living in ways that people have self-worth. And that's a redefinition of capitalism towards human capitalism and towards compassionism. And I think that's sort of the model here, is that we need this desperately in the world to be able to create communities. And if you look at this community, one thing that's important to note is it's not a gated community. The point of these neighborhoods to build enough of them, like lily pads of overproducing healthy, beautiful places. You build enough of these small communities and neighborhoods, they become like college campuses. They become places of ebb and flow of information, of creativity. People can be focusing on cultural events, on art, on science, there's a whole new way forward for new economies to emerge from this kind of development thinking. And that's really what I would say the post-COVID world, that's what excites me about the post-COVID world. If you haven't noticed already, and I'm sure many people have in the news, clean air, clean water, birds that they haven't seen or heard before in their whole lives maybe. There's the migration patterns. Everything is changing because people are staying home. And there's less air pollution. There's less water pollution. We're seeing dolphins in the canals of Venice, just by way of example. So we're waking up to a new world that ought to be really a celebration of nature and how we really fit into that celebration. And once we really get that equation kind of back in alignment again, then I'm really confident we will be successful as a species on this planet.
So, like, yeah, I mean, it seems like it's too good to be truth. And when you were saying that utopia, that was crossing my mind, but I was doing like calculation. I was like, it doesn't seem that utopian. It's not like, and like my mind was trying to process and say, okay, what is hidden agenda here? But it seems that it is so intuitive, right? And it seems right. It should be in the way that it should be. All I see in this meta concept, I see a beautiful synergy of many different technologies, many different agendas to kind of collide in a collision. And when you brought up, you were saying it, like in my mind, it's my first time seeing that presentation, but in my head, when you were saying Village OS, it was like popping in my head. I'm like, it is Village OS. And I just, while you're talking, I'm just saying what I'm thinking is that I just got back to your background of video games designing. And after that, now I understand why you're taking that extensive amount of time to doing introduction to how you come. It's not rational idea. It's not you woke up with that. You've been working very hard on that. You've done, and so you were doing a different project, which actually led that. And you're like a gamer or game designer idea, like it seems. I think it's like combination. It's just amazing. I think if people want to just buy into that with the future and with their commitment, and they say, okay, if you give me a house, I'm ready for work here for 15 years. So this will be my my work will be my down payment. And actually, it is good because you're living in such a nice neighborhood. You're eating organic food. You are not doing any wasteful stuff. You are not producing or exploiting the nature. And I just assume people who would want to live in this neighborhood or in this livelihood are nice people. I mean,
well, look, the truth is we're not socially engineering this. People are people. There's no doubt about it that you're going to live in a neighborhood with people that you adore. There's going to be people in the neighborhood that you don't like so much, people that maybe you can't make a connection with, because that's human nature. Yeah. So we're not trying to design that only certain kinds of people can be involved with this. I think that would be the wrong direction for us. The truth of the matter is we start at the most important life-affirming piece, which is food. I love delicious food. I love healthy food that makes me feel good. I love delicious recipes from all around the world because those are stories. Everybody has a story. The grandfather, the grandmother, the great-grandmother, whatever it is, had this particular kind of recipe. And when you marry all of that together, the differences actually melt away. And then there are no differences between people. It's all about learning and celebrating those kinds of stories around food. Then, you're living in a house that's generating more power than your family needs just because of the way it was designed. And we're using natural resource flows. very low power energy water pumps that bring, the controlled climate from underneath the soil up into that house. So you have always a year-round comfortable climate to be living in that doesn't require a lot of energy to heat or to cool, right? Then with solar and wind and other kinds of other generation, you have enough power to power your house more than you need, plus electric vehicles and other kinds of things. Then you have, waste management, where at a neighborhood scale, waste, human waste, animal waste, is actually an asset class. It's actually can be purified into clean water, into fertilizers, fuel and energy. At a district scale, cities and neighborhoods, big neighborhoods, those kinds of waste streams are pathogens that need a lot of energy to be mitigated. So you see, the whole idea of living in an ecosystem is what we're really talking about. That is a happy place. So not perfect. There's no such thing. There's no utopia. But it just happier, healthier places. Most importantly, where people are feeling safe. And that's really what we're addressing and what we've been talking about now for the better part of 6 years.
Okay. Well, that's amazing. My next question will be, what stage you are? Do you have an MVP? Have you had a first, let's say, your product rolled? Or can you tell us about the process? Where are you into bringing this beautiful idea into the world?
Thank you so much. So we are right now is we are making great progress on our village operating system software, our Village OS, because that's really the lever. That's the whole design mechanism to design and define the regenerative neighborhood around these systems. And that's that software, as I mentioned before, that will actually run the physical neighborhoods. Concurrently, we're also raising money, a private equity fund, for buying land grants in very beautiful, interesting places, not far from vibrant cities and towns and universities. So these are land grants that are currently zoned agricultural ranch or greenbelt area. So the land is very inexpensive or fairly inexpensive. And then our idea is to use the software to rezone that land for mixed use for development. So where we are right now, we have a pipeline of projects, as I mentioned. We're a Dutch company, so we have those projects in the Netherlands, in Sweden. We've got a great collaboration with white architects in Sweden. In the UK, we've got a great collaboration with Sir Robert McAlpine, which is the oldest, largest engineering construction firm in the UK. They built Wembley Stadium, the Bloomberg Tower, the Olympic Village, highways, rail systems. So we're working with Sir Robert McAlpine not only on the software side in designing and building out the Village OS, but also on the joint venture development opportunities all around the UK. Here in the US, there's lots of amazing opportunities. For instance, we're in a great discussion right now with Toyota North America to build housing for their workers, and also as a means to essentially kickstart social affordable living in Kentucky, in the eastern part of Kentucky, that's been especially hit hard by the downturn of coal. So we really are focused on the future of living for the rest of us, and not just for those wealthier folks. So that's essentially where we are right now. We are in a Series A round. We're raising 16 million euro to actually build the first community, because we already have thousands of families signed up who are ready to buy or rent or move in. So that 16 million actually facilitates the right circumstance for us to build and get the first community up and running.
So excellent. So if you tell me more, so 16 million euros will be enough for a community of how many people? So governments or the other people who want to be on board, they want to hear the numbers so they understand how many people, or what would be the size of that community for 16 million?
Right now, the way we've run the numbers initially is about 350 families. Depending upon numbers, could be anywhere from 900 to 1,200 people on about 60 acres or 25 hectare. And the current build price for Northern Europe is about 75 million euro for the full build of the neighborhood, all the housing, all the regenerative infrastructure, and with those 350 homes, with the kind of current or pre-COVID economic model, we get to about a 12 to 15% IRR or return rate on the real estate side.
Yeah.
But primarily, we're a software company.
Okay.
So primarily, our goal is to build the first 5 or 6 villages in joint venture around the world in different climate zones. And then our software can then start to really learn and replicate the information and the algorithms that support those particular neighborhoods in those climate zones.
Yeah, basically doing the scale up, you will definitely bring the cost down. And you were saying that I think from the smaller villages, it could become to like a sort of a town size, because you showed a beautiful example of a timber skyscraper. I think I saw one of the videos of like 60 floor wooden skyscraper. I think this could. Yeah, so you can move out, but you don't want to create, you don't want people to live in villages, but this is the MVP. This is where you can small test and trial and then scale it up.
Well,
and
you can glue several of these kinds of self-reliant regenerative neighborhoods together into a town structure. So if you have 5 or 6 of these communities surrounding a central piazza, for instance, then you're basically building the town of the future. And yes, you can put those beautiful residential towers, into this kind of community and still have them be self-reliant because they're connected to the same infrastructure.
Yes.
So you're absolutely right about that, and that's really our goal. Look, we're not intending to take Mumbai, India, from 35 million people down to 5 million people. What we're trying to do is prevent Mumbai from going from 35 million
to 50 or 80. Yeah.
Okay, because currently Mumbai has run out of water. They're 800 meters down and they're drilling. They're coming up brackish because of sea level rise. So the water that they're getting is actually salty.
Salty, yeah.
So they're trucking water in every day to a city of 35 million people. And you can see how brittle that is and how fragile that is.
And I think, I think history taught us a very good lesson of mega cities, of big cities. Angkor Wat, and there are many other cities in Amazon that were like left. We had the cities of like 10 million people, like a New York sized cities like 1,000 years ago, and they were completely abandoned just because they ran out the resources. They cut down all the trees and water, like they drank all the rivers, right? And they didn't have the supply of food chain, so they had to kind of move back. So going mega cities is not the solution. I mean,
it's interesting because 6 years ago, when I started the research at Stanford about ReGen Villages, there were many people that I've met around the world who thought I was a nice enough guy, but certifiably crazy, because nobody wants to leave the city. All of the trends were saying that everybody was leaving the rural areas. All the youth are leaving the rural areas to go to the shiny megacities. And yes, that has been true since 1950. But what's interesting is that up till 1950, 75% of all humanity lived in self-sustaining small communities. Now, fast forward to the last month or the last 2 months, you're seeing entire cities, those people who could afford to leave, started to do what? They started to leave the city for their country houses, for the countryside. And the rural areas were saying, go back. We don't want you here because we're not prepared for you. We're not prepared for this exodus from the cities. So unfortunately, I wish the people 6 years ago, especially with the money, would have taken us seriously and said, this is something we need to start building now and create an industrialized prefab approach to building these off-grid neighborhoods at scale around the world. Then we would have been prepared for the cities breaking and people being afraid to live in urban areas and wanting to come back out to the countryside.
Well, I think they're gonna take. Well, I think they're gonna take you seriously this time, because I think it's now human nature. Like
Yeah.
procrastination is now blood. So until we got like a slap, until we're not knocked down, we don't realize that it is serious. So things can be and should be taken seriously. And like,
Well, and I live in a suburban area, just so you know, next to Stanford University,
uh-huh.
and we're lucky if we get maybe 30 to 50% of our food basket each week because of the fact that there are shortages. So we are, unfortunately, ourselves not living in a ReGen village in this moment, but it's more and more reason why I'm so glad that I devoted my life to this. I really am.
No, I think it's going to propel. I think this idea will take off. And in order just to let out people know, are you looking for partnership? How governments or companies can contact you? Are you particularly interested in a certain regions of the world, or you have flexible business models? So can companies and other organizations contact you, and how they should do it? So, I mean, if you can tell us.
Yeah, well, on this screen that I'm showing, there's my Stanford email address, but also I have another email address, which is james@regenvillages.com,
Okay.
or they can go to regenvillages.com. And primarily in this moment, we are fundraising. So we're looking for qualified impact investors, people who care, in other words, who have money and also care and believe in this idea and are ready to step up with their own money and also their network of finance to create the kind of fund that will allow us to build these communities rapidly around the world. And then, of course, government involvement that are really ready to roll up their sleeves and change the rules, change the laws. There's no reason why those rules that are 100, 150 years old that require district scale power, district scale water, district scale sewage, that we don't need those rules anymore. We can have these communities that are vibrant and self-reliant, that aren't disassociated or disconnected from government. They're actually, every one of these neighborhoods that we build around the world will prove reduce burdens on local, regional, national governments, reduce burdens on healthcare systems, reduce burdens on insurance and banking, and most importantly, mitigate risk of civilization collapse. So it's not a matter of kicking the tires on the investment anymore. It's a matter of stepping up, putting the money in right now to get this done, and having the governments stand next to us and even behind us to get this done in the right way. So that's what we're looking for. And that means we can replicate this anywhere around the world using our software as a licensing model, but also using our logic and our ingenuity to get these communities built fast. That's what we need to do right now.
And what I like about you, James, you are like, yeah, definitely you are entrepreneur. I don't want to diminish this word, and I don't want to just call you out by that. Yeah, absolutely entrepreneur. But what I think is that you are motivated not for money. You are not doing it for the money. And the fact that you are a scientist yourself gives people a confidence that it's not a pyramid scheme. It's not, I mean, it's not for getting the money and making a Ponzi scheme or like selling snake oil. So definitely people should take you seriously. I'm sure everybody is taking that you seriously, definitely. And I'm both to this idea. I would love to see in my country such communities. They're like just amazing. And it just goes back to our roots. Like people always like the grandmas and village. We always have a good, positive memories, even like where we visit certain places. Now, I'm more than sure that, except that certain people, no one adores living in a big cities because, they live for certain reason, but if they have a choice to blend it or to earn and to live in such places, they would. And another point I would like to make that you use this word very much is that social housing, which means that every country is eligible. It's not, again, it's not for only richer countries. And the point that it's a social housing means that it should be affordable, and it always can be built up in a way of MVP regarding the needs of the certain areas. And you, like you said about the materials, because, well, in many countries, timber is very cheap, wood is very cheap, you build up from the wood, but in a certain area, sub-Sahara, in other deserty area, you don't have wood, it's expensive. There you go, you have the 3D printings, and you can use the local source. And what is the beauty of 3D printing is that you can put as input anything. And we know that from old time, people use a different materials, so you can locally source and always bring the price down. Bravo! I just really love that.
That's exactly our goal. Is that the initial communities may be 75 million euro to build, in North Europe and the U.S., but in the global South and rural India, sub-Saharan Africa, across ASEAN and other parts of the world, we can build the neighborhood for a fraction of that, and using local earthen materials. And also that, especially if people have more of a vegetarian diet or a pescatarian, dairy and vegetarian diet, that these communities can actually be almost 100% self-sustaining in nutrition. So it is this opportunity for people to feel safe and feel secure, and it is a solution for the next 2 to 3 billion people coming to the planet in the next 25 years. So that's really where this whole design thinking had come from. The reason why we started in North Europe and the reason why we started in more developed economies was to make it a shining example,
yes,
of how the new middle class or upper middle class want to live. And then when you bring it to the global South, people have heard about it, they want to aspire toward that, and they want it.
yeah.
Again, very much like Elon Musk's business model. You start with the high end, and then you bring the electric vehicle to the masses. So,
well, I think this is a brilliant strategy. We were thinking about 20 to 30 minutes, but we way surpassed our limit. But I think it's for the greater good. And I could go hours and hours. I had so many other questions regarding Village OS. I was wanting to explore with you the opportunity of, like when you showed the world map, when there was interconnection, I was just, my mind blew up of opportunities of the big data. There would be so much data in it, and actually maybe those villages could generate income from the data that they generate. So it's a sort of creating a closed economy. So and the data becoming a new oil, there you go, this is a new oil, and you're bringing up to that scale. I think that is,
and the most important thing is that the data from our perspective really belongs to each village.
Wow.
and each resident, right?
Yeah.
Very different than some other tech companies who are building smart cities, quote unquote, where there's a big fight over privacy and data and things like this. Our focus really is on anonymized infrastructure data that's focusing on food, water, energy, and waste, and system data, but primarily that has to inure benefit to the people who are living in those communities. So again, we're we're very different. As a real estate developer, I would say that I'm a sheep in wolf's clothing. As a software developer and designer, I'm interested in the greater good, as you said, and overall, our wealth, our return on investment, will be these healthy, happy, safe, self-reliant communities, budding and blossoming all around the world. And then I feel like our work is just starting.
Excellent, sir. Well, James, I think this is not our last conversation. We are definitely going to tune back, and we're going to definitely talk and partner in a different occasion. And the next time, I really hope I can see you in person so we can discuss. And well, I want to contribute. I don't know in what form. I believe we will find the capacity. I don't know in what capacity, but I want to be the part of this project. Let's talk off topic right now. We were like talking, and I think a lot of people gonna benefit from this talk since we were like making it around the COVID-19. But I think this topic needs to be brought up under different circumstances and widespread. So once again, thank you very much for your time and for this wonderful presentation. We're going to be linking down below everything what James said. If you want to talk to him, if you want to be friends with him, and well, generally have a business proposal or would like to invest, which I highly urge you to invest in his wonderful project, you can stay in touch. And James, thank you very much. Stay safe. I really hope we shall meet some sunny day somewhere around the world.
Yes, God willing. Okay, happy Easter.
Thank you very much, sir. Happy Easter.
Okay, take care.